The dust from the stranger's horse hadn't even settled when Katherine Langford raised her rifle, aiming it steady at the tall man dismounting near her ranch gate. Her green eyes narrowed with the kind of suspicion that came from hard-earned lessons in Wyoming Territory during the summer of 1878. "That's far enough," she called out, her voice carrying across the dry prairie wind. "State your business or turn that gelding around." The man froze, hands raised slowly to show he meant no harm. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with sun-darkened skin and dark hair that curled slightly at his collar. His clothes were dusty from travel but well-maintained. A rancher, she guessed, not a drifter. "Madam, I'm Warren Foster. I own the property adjoining yours to the west. Just wanted to introduce myself, seeing as we're neighbors." "I don't need neighbors," Katherine said flatly. "And I especially don't need men coming onto my property uninvited." Warren Foster kept his hands visible, his expression calm and patient. "I can respect that. I apologize for the intrusion. I'll be on my way, but if you ever need anything, my ranch is just over the ridge. The offer stands." He mounted his horse with fluid grace, tipped his hat to her despite the rifle still pointed in his direction, and rode off without another word. Katherine watched him go, her jaw tight, the rifle not lowering until he disappeared from view. 3 days later, she found a section of her fence repaired, the posts replaced and the wire stretched tight. No note, no explanation. She stood there in the morning light, anger and confusion warring inside her. She hadn't asked for help. She didn't want anything from any man, especially not one who thought he could win her over with unsolicited favors. Katherine Langford had purchased this land 6 months ago with money she had saved for 10 years, working every job a woman could find in the territories. She had been 19 when she started saving, working as a cook, a seamstress, a laundress. Now, at 24, she finally had her own place, her own cattle, her own life, and she had vowed never to depend on a man again. Her father had drunk away everything her mother had built. Her intended husband had stolen her savings and disappeared the night before their wedding. Every man she had ever trusted had proven himself unworthy of that trust, so she had stopped giving it. The next morning, she rode over to the Foster ranch. It was larger than hers, well-maintained, with sturdy buildings and healthy cattle grazing in the distance. She found Warren Foster mending a saddle outside the barn, his shirt sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle. "I didn't ask for your help," she said without preamble. He looked up, squinting against the sun. "No, madam, you didn't." "Then why did you fix my fence?" "Because it needed fixing," he said simply. "And I was riding by and had the materials with me. I can fix my own fences. I'm sure you can." He set down the leather he was working on and stood, wiping his hands on his trousers. "But that doesn't mean you have to refuse help when it's freely given." "Nothing is free," Katherine said bitterly. "Men always expect something in return." Something flickered in Warren's dark eyes, understanding or perhaps sympathy. "Some men might, I don't. I fixed your fence because we're neighbors and because it was the right thing to do. I expect nothing from you, Miss Langford." "How do you know my name?" Asked around town. Wanted to know who my new neighbor was. Katherine studied him, searching for the lie, the angle, the hidden agenda. But his expression remained open, honest. It made her more uncomfortable than if he had leered at her or made crude suggestions. Those men she knew how to handle. "Don't do it again," she said finally. "Do what? Fix things that are broken? Help me. I don't need it and I don't want it." Warren nodded slowly. "I'll respect your wishes, Miss Langford, but the offer stands if you change your mind." She rode away, frustrated by how reasonable he was being, how calm in the face of her hostility. It would have been easier if he had gotten angry, proven himself to be like all the other men she had known. But Warren Foster didn't get angry. Instead, he simply continued being a good neighbor in ways that required nothing of her. When her cattle broke through a different section of fence a week later and wandered onto his property, he herded them back to the boundary line and left them there for her to collect, not even coming to her door to tell her. She only found out because she had been counting her herd and noticed they were clustered at the western edge of her land. When she went to town for supplies, the shopkeeper mentioned that Warren had recommended a particular feed that worked well in their climate. When she asked why Warren was discussing her business, the shopkeeper looked confused and explained that Warren had simply mentioned it in conversation, not knowing she was about to come in and ask about feed options. It was infuriating, the way he helped without helping, the way he respected her boundaries while still somehow being present in her life. A month after their first meeting, a summer storm rolled across the prairie with devastating speed. Katherine was out checking on her pregnant cow when the sky opened up, rain falling in sheets so thick she could barely see her hand in front of her face. Lightning cracked across the sky and her horse spooked, rearing and pulling the reins from her hands. The mare bolted, leaving Katherine alone in the storm, miles from her house. She started walking, soaked through in seconds, knowing that staying out in the open with lightning striking all around was dangerous but having no other choice. The rain was cold despite the summer heat, and she was shivering within minutes. Then she heard hoofbeats, and Warren Foster appeared through the rain like an apparition, leading a riderless horse behind him. "Your mare ran past my place," he shouted over the storm. "Figured you might need a ride." Pride warred with practicality. Katherine was cold, wet, and at least an hour's walk from home. Lightning struck a tree in the distance, the crack of splitting wood audible even over the rain. "Fine," she said, reaching for the reins. "My place is closer," Warren said. "You can dry off there and wait out the storm. I'd rather go home. In this lightning. Miss Langford, I know you don't trust me, but I'm not going to let you risk getting struck by lightning out of sheer stubbornness. My house is 10 minutes away. Yours is over an hour. Please." The please did it, the genuine concern in his voice that had nothing to do with wanting something from her and everything to do with basic human decency. Katherine nodded and mounted the horse he offered. They rode hard for his ranch, the rain pelting them sideways, the wind howling across the open prairie. By the time they reached his house, Katherine's teeth were chattering so hard she could barely speak. Warren's house was neat and well built, larger than her own cabin. He led her inside and immediately went to stoke the fire in the hearth. "I'll get you some dry clothes," he said, disappearing into another room. Katherine stood dripping on his floor, looking around despite herself. The house was clean but lived in, with books on shelves and a comfortable-looking chair by the fireplace. No whiskey bottles, no signs of the dissolution that had marked her father's home. Warren returned with a shirt and trousers. "They'll be too big, but they're dry. You can change behind that screen there." She took the clothes and changed quickly, grateful to be out of her soaked garments. The shirt hung to her knees and the trousers had to be rolled up several times, but they were warm and dry. When she emerged, Warren had coffee brewing and was pointedly not looking in her direction, giving her privacy even in his own home. "Coffee will be ready in a minute," he said. "I can make some food if you're hungry." "I'm fine," Katherine said, though her stomach growled in contradiction. Warren smiled slightly but didn't comment. He poured 2 cups of coffee and handed her one, then settled into the chair across from her, maintaining a respectful distance. "Thank you," Katherine said quietly, "for coming to find me. You're welcome." "Why did you?" Warren looked at her over the rim of his coffee cup. "Because you were in danger. What kind of man would I be if I left you out there? Most men wouldn't have noticed my horse running past. I notice a lot of things, Miss Langford. The storm raged outside, rattling the windows. Katherine sipped her coffee, feeling warmth seep back into her bones. She studied Warren in the firelight. He was probably close to 30, she guessed, with crow's feet at the corners of his eyes from squinting into the sun. His hands were calloused and scarred from hard work. A rancher's hands. "Why aren't you married?" she asked suddenly, then felt her face heat at the impropriety of the question. But Warren didn't seem offended. "Haven't found the right woman, I suppose. I've been focused on building up the ranch. My father left it to me when he died 5 years ago. It was in rough shape then. I've spent the time since fixing it up, making it profitable. And now it runs well enough that I have time to think about other things." His eyes met hers. "What about you? Why isn't a woman like you married?" "I was engaged once," Katherine said, the bitterness creeping back into her voice. "He took everything I had saved and left the night before the wedding. Before that, I watched my father drink away everything my mother built, every penny she earned. She died exhausted and poor because she trusted him. I learned from her mistakes." Warren was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry that happened to you, but we're not all like that, aren't you? Every man I've ever known has proven himself untrustworthy. Why should you be different?" "I can't answer that," Warren said. "You'll have to decide that for yourself. All I can do is show you through my actions. I don't want you to show me anything. I don't want anything from you." "I know," Warren said gently. "You've made that very clear. But I'm still going to be a good neighbor, Katherine. Not because I expect anything in return, but because it's who I am." The use of her first name should have angered her, but somehow it didn't. The storm continued its fury outside, and they sat in comfortable silence, drinking coffee and listening to the rain. By the time the storm passed, it was nearly dark. Warren offered to ride back with her, but Katherine refused. She mounted her own horse, now dried and calmed in Warren's barn, and rode home in the twilight, wearing her own clothes that Warren had dried by the fire. She thought about him that night, lying in her bed, listening to the last of the rain patter against her roof. Thought about the way he had respected her space, the way he had helped without asking for anything, the way he looked at her like she was worth something beyond what she could provide. It terrified her, that small seed of trust trying to take root in the barren soil of her heart. The next week, one of her cows went into difficult labor in the middle of the night. Katherine worked for hours trying to turn the calf, but it was breech, and she couldn't manage it alone. The cow was bellowing in pain, and Katherine was exhausted and covered in blood when she finally admitted she needed help. She saddled her horse and rode to Warren's ranch, arriving just before dawn. She pounded on his door, and he answered quickly, his hair mussed from sleep, pulling on his shirt. "It's the cow," she said without preamble. "The calf is breech and I can't turn it. She's going to die if I don't get help." "Let me get my boots," Warren said, no questions, no hesitation. They rode back together in the pre-dawn darkness. Warren took one look at the situation and rolled up his sleeves. "Hold her head," he said. "Keep her as calm as you can." Katherine did as he asked, murmuring soothing words to the cow while Warren worked. His hands were sure and gentle, and after what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, he managed to turn the calf. It slid out in a rush of fluid, and Warren quickly cleared its nose and mouth. The calf took a shuddering breath and bleated. The cow lowed and began licking her baby clean. Katherine felt tears on her face and realized she was crying. This cow represented a significant portion of her herd's future. Losing her would have been devastating. "Thank you," she whispered. Warren washed his hands in the bucket of water she brought, then looked at her in the growing dawn light. You don't have to do this alone, you know. Ranching is hard enough without refusing help when you need it. I asked for help this time, Katherine said. You did. And I'm glad you trusted me enough to do that. Trust. The word hung between them like a challenge. Warren stayed long enough to make sure both cow and calf were stable, then prepared to leave. Katherine walked him to his horse. Warren, she said, using his first name for the first time. He turned to look at her. Would you like to stay for breakfast? It's the least I can do. Something warm kindled in his eyes. I'd like that very much. She made eggs and bacon, bread toasted over the fire. They ate together as the sun rose, talking about cattle and grass and the weather. Safe topics that didn't require her to examine the way her heart beat faster when he smiled at her. After that, things changed in subtle ways. Katherine stopped automatically reaching for her rifle when Warren rode onto her property. She even started riding over to his ranch when she needed advice, asking about things she could have figured out herself, but using as an excuse to see him. Warren never pushed, never asked for more than she was willing to give. He was patient in a way that made her wonder what she had done to deserve his constancy. One evening in late summer, she found him fixing the gate to her main pasture, the same one she had meant to fix for weeks, but kept putting off. I thought I told you not to fix things for me, she said, but there was no heat in her voice. Warren looked up and grinned. You did, but this gate was a hazard. Figured you wouldn't mind this one. I should be angry with you. Should be, he agreed. Are you? Katherine considered. No, she admitted. I'm grateful, even if it irritates me to admit it. Warren laughed, a warm sound that made something flutter in her chest. I'll take grateful and irritated over hostile and armed. I only pointed my rifle at you that once. Twice, Warren corrected. There was also the time I came to tell you about the cougar spotted near your north pasture. Oh, right. Katherine felt her face heat. Well, you startled me. I announced myself from 50 yards away, still startling. They grinned at each other, and Katherine realized this was flirting. She was flirting with Warren Foster. The realization should have sent her running, but instead she found herself wanting to stay. Have dinner with me, Warren said suddenly. Tomorrow night, at my place. Let me cook for you for once. Katherine's first instinct was to refuse, to put that wall back up between them. But she was tired of being afraid, tired of letting her past dictate her future. All right, she said, but I'm bringing dessert. Warren's smile could have lit up the whole prairie. Katherine spent the next day in a state of nervous energy, second-guessing her decision 100 times. She made an apple pie, using precious sugar and the last of her stored apples. She changed clothes 3 times before settling on her best dress, a simple blue cotton that brought out her eyes. She rode to Warren's ranch as the sun was setting, the pie carefully packed in her saddlebag. Warren met her outside, and she could tell he had made an effort too. He wore a clean shirt and had obviously shaved recently. You look beautiful, he said simply. No man had called her beautiful in years. Katherine felt her throat tighten with emotion. Thank you. Dinner was venison stew with vegetables from his garden, fresh bread, and the coffee he always seemed to have ready. They ate at his table, and Katherine found herself relaxing, laughing at his stories about stubborn cattle and the neighbor whose chickens kept escaping to raid Warren's garden. After dinner, they moved to the porch to watch the stars come out. The night was warm and clear, the sky vast overhead. I want to be honest with you, Warren said quietly. I have feelings for you, Katherine. Have had since the day you pointed that rifle at me and told me to state my business. I've been trying to earn your trust because I want to be part of your life. But I need to know if that's something you might want too. Katherine's heart pounded. This was the moment she had been dreading and hoping for in equal measure. She could shut this down right now, protect herself from potential hurt. or she could take a leap of faith. "I'm terrified," she admitted. "Every man I've ever trusted has hurt me. I don't know how to do this, how to let someone in when every instinct tells me to protect myself." Warren reached across the space between them and took her hand gently. "I can't promise I'll never make mistakes or disappoint you. I'm human and I'm going to mess up sometimes. But I can promise that I'll never lie to you, never steal from you, never treat you as anything less than my equal. I see how strong you are, how capable. I don't want to take care of you because you're helpless. I want to be with you because you're extraordinary." Tears spilled down Catherine's cheeks. "I don't know if I can give you what you want." "What do you think I want? Trust, love, all the things I locked away years ago." Warren squeezed her hand. "I don't expect you to give me everything at once. Trust is earned day by day, action by action. I've been earning it for months now, and I'll keep earning it for as long as it takes. As for love," he paused, his thumb stroking across her knuckles, "love grows when it's tended. We can tend it together at whatever pace you need." "What if I'm too broken?" Katherine whispered. "You're not broken," Warren said firmly. "You're careful. You've been hurt and you've protected yourself. That's not being broken, that's being smart. But Katherine, I need you to know that I'm not like the men who hurt you. Give me a chance to prove that." Katherine looked at their joined hands, then up at his face. In the starlight, she could see the sincerity in his eyes, the hope and patience that had defined every interaction they had had. "Okay," she said softly. "I'll try. I can't promise it will be easy and I might push you away sometimes, but I'll try." Warren's smile was like sunrise. He lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles gently. "That's all I ask." They sat on the porch for hours, talking about everything and nothing. Katherine found herself sharing things she had never told anyone, about her mother's slow decline, about the shame she had felt when her fiancé left, about the years of scraping and saving to buy her own land. Warren listened without judgment, sharing his own stories in return. His mother had died when he was young, and his father had been a hard man, demanding and often cruel. Warren had learned ranching through harsh lessons and harder work. "I promised myself I'd never be like him," Warren said. "He saw kindness as weakness. I've tried to live differently, to prove that a man can be strong without being cruel." "You've succeeded," Katherine said quietly. When she finally rode home that night, the moon high overhead, her heart felt lighter than it had in years. She was still afraid, still uncertain, but for the first time she had hope. Over the following weeks, Warren courted her with a patience and gentleness that slowly wore down her defenses. He brought her wildflowers from the prairie, not expensive hothouse blooms, but simple, beautiful things that showed he was thinking of her. He helped her with the heavy work around her ranch without making her feel incapable. He listened when she talked and remembered small details she mentioned in passing. They had dinner together several times a week, sometimes at his place, sometimes at hers. Warren taught her how to play chess, and Katherine taught him the songs her mother used to sing. They worked side by side mending fences and herding cattle, and Katherine found herself appreciating the comfort of companionship. One afternoon in early fall, they were riding the boundary between their properties, checking fences, when Warren's horse stumbled in a prairie dog hole. Warren was thrown, landing hard on the ground. The horse scrambled up, favoring its front leg, but Warren didn't move. Katherine was off her horse in seconds, kneeling beside him. "Warren, Warren, can you hear me?" he groaned, his eyes fluttering open. "I'm all right. Just had the wind knocked out of me. Don't move. You might have broken something. I'm fine, Katherine." But when he tried to sit up, he winced and grabbed his ribs. "You're hurt." Katherine checked him over with gentle hands, her medical knowledge limited but better than nothing. His ribs were likely bruised, maybe cracked. His horse was definitely lame. "Can you ride if I help you up?" she asked. Warren nodded, his face pale. Katherine got him onto her horse, then led Warren's limping gelding as they made their slow way back to Warren's ranch. She got him inside and settled in his bed, then went to care for the horses. The gelding had a bad sprain, but nothing broken. Katherine wrapped the leg and got both horses settled, then returned to the house to check on Warren. He was trying to get up when she walked in. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "Need to see to the animals." "I already did that. Lie down before you hurt yourself worse." "Katherine, I can't expect you to lie down, Warren Foster, or so help me I'll tie you to that bed." Despite his pain, Warren's eyes gleamed with amusement. "Yes, madam." Katherine made dinner, fed the chickens, checked on the cattle, and did all the evening chores. When she came back inside, Warren was asleep. She stood in the doorway watching him, this man who had been so patient with her, so constant. Her heart clenched with an emotion she was finally ready to name. She loved him. Somewhere between the rifle pointing and the fence fixing and the gentle patience, she had fallen in love with Warren Foster. The realization should have terrified her, but instead it felt right. Inevitable, even. Warren woke as she was checking the fire. "You're still here." "Where else would I be? You're hurt. You could have gone home, I'd have managed." Katherine came to sit on the edge of his bed. "I know you would have, but I didn't want to leave you alone." Warren reached for her hand. "Thank you for taking care of me." "You've been taking care of me for months," Katherine said. "It's my turn." She stayed that night, sleeping in his chair by the fire, refusing to leave him alone while he was injured. Over the next few days, she rode between the two ranches, managing both properties and nursing Warren back to health. His ribs healed slowly, and he chafed at the forced inactivity, but Katherine was firm. "You can't rush healing," she told him when he tried to get up to mend a broken harness. "You'll just hurt yourself worse. I'm not used to sitting idle, I know, but you're going to have to learn patience." She gave him a pointed look. "Though you seem to have plenty of that when it comes to me." Warren caught her hand as she passed. "That's different. You're worth waiting for." Katherine leaned down and kissed him, soft and sweet. It was the first time she had initiated affection, and Warren's surprised pleasure made her smile. "What was that for?" he asked. "For being you," Katherine said simply. As fall turned toward winter, their relationship deepened. Katherine found herself spending more time at Warren's ranch than her own, their lives becoming increasingly intertwined. They worked together, ate together, sat by the fire together in the evenings. One night in late October, as the first snow was beginning to fall, Warren pulled her close on the porch of his house. "Marry me," he said quietly. Katherine's breath caught. She had known this was coming, had felt it building between them, but the actual words still sent her heart racing. "Warren, I love you, Katherine Langford. I love your strength and your stubbornness, and the way you refuse to accept help even when you need it. I love the way you sing when you think no one is listening, and the way you talk to your cattle like they're people. I want to spend the rest of my life earning your trust every single day. I want to build something with you, a life and a ranch and a family. So I'm asking you, will you marry me?" Katherine looked up at him, this man who had been so patient, so constant, so utterly different from every man she had ever known. The fear was still there, a small voice warning her that this could end badly. But it was drowned out by a louder voice, one that spoke of love and trust and hope. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." Warren's kiss was deep and thorough, full of promise and passion. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against hers. "I don't have a ring yet," he admitted. "I was planning to go to town next week to buy one, but I couldn't wait to ask." "I don't need a ring," Katherine said. "I just need you. "You'll have both," Warren promised. They were married in November in the small church in Cheyenne with a handful of neighbors as witnesses. Katherine wore a dress of deep green velvet that Warren had insisted on buying, and Warren wore his best suit. The ceremony was simple but heartfelt, and when the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Katherine felt something settle in her chest, a peace she had never known. They combined their ranches, running them as one operation. Katherine kept her own cattle separate, a matter of pride and independence that Warren understood and supported. They worked side by side through the winter, feeding cattle and breaking ice on water troughs and keeping each other warm through the long, cold nights. In the spring, Katherine discovered she was pregnant. She told Warren one morning over breakfast, her hands shaking slightly as she set down her coffee cup. "I'm going to have a baby," she said quietly. Warren's face transformed, joy and wonder and a touch of fear flickering across his features. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. The baby should come in late summer, I think." Warren crossed the room in 2 strides and pulled her into his arms. "I love you so much," he said against her hair. "Thank you. Thank you for trusting me enough to build this life with me." Katherine held him tight, feeling the steady beat of his heart against hers. "I trust you," she said, and realized it was completely true. Somewhere along the way, Warren had proven himself worthy of the trust she had sworn never to give again. The pregnancy was difficult. Katherine was sick for months, barely able to keep food down. Warren tended to her with infinite patience, bringing her water and crackers, holding her hair when she was ill, never complaining about the extra work of running the ranch mostly alone. As summer approached and her belly swelled, Katherine found herself afraid in a new way. Her mother had died when Katherine was young, and she had no female relatives to guide her through this. Warren brought the doctor from town to check on her, and the doctor pronounced both mother and baby healthy, but Katherine couldn't shake her fear. "What if something goes wrong?" she asked Warren one night, lying in bed with his hand on her rounded stomach. "Then we'll face it together," Warren said. "But the doctor says you're strong and healthy. You're going to be fine and our baby is going to be fine." "You can't know that." "No," Warren admitted, "but I believe it, and I believe in you. You're the strongest person I know, Katherine Foster." The use of her married name still gave her a thrill. Katherine Foster. She was no longer alone, no longer fighting the world by herself. The baby came in August, during a thunderstorm much like the one that had first brought her to Warren's house seeking shelter. The labor was long and hard, and there were moments when Katherine was sure she couldn't do it, couldn't endure the pain and the fear. But Warren was there, holding her hand, whispering encouragement, never leaving her side. When the baby finally arrived, a boy with dark hair and a lusty cry, Katherine wept with relief and joy. Warren cut the cord with shaking hands, and the doctor wrapped the baby and placed him in Katherine's arms. "He's perfect," Warren said, his voice thick with emotion. "You're both perfect." They named him William, after Warren's father, a gesture of forgiveness for the past and hope for the future. Warren held his son with such tenderness that Katherine fell in love with him all over again. The first year with William was exhausting and wonderful. Katherine had never known she could love so fiercely, so completely. Warren was a devoted father, walking the floor with William when he cried at night, singing him nonsense songs, playing with him for hours. Their ranch prospered. The combined herds grew, and they added more land, building their legacy for their son. Katherine had never been happier, had never felt more at peace. One evening, when William was nearly a year old, Katherine and Warren sat on their porch watching the sunset. William was asleep in Katherine's arms, his small fist curled against her chest. "You remember the day we met?" Warren asked. Katherine laughed softly. You mean the day I pointed a rifle at you and told you to state your business? That's the one. I knew then that you were going to be important to me. Even with a rifle pointed at you, especially then, you were so fierce, so determined to protect what was yours. I admired that. Still do. Katherine leaned her head against his shoulder. I was so afraid of you. Not of you hurting me physically, but of you getting close enough to hurt me in deeper ways. Are you still afraid? Katherine considered the question. Sometimes, she admitted, but not like I was. You've proven yourself over and over, Warren. Every day, you show me that my trust isn't misplaced. You've given me everything I was too afraid to hope for. You gave me something too, Warren said. You gave me your trust when you had every reason not to. You let me love you even when you were terrified. That's the greatest gift I've ever received. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out. William stirred and made a small sound, and Katherine rocked him gently until he settled again. I want more, Katherine said suddenly. Warren looked at her. More what? More of this. More children, more years, more life with you. I spent so long protecting myself, keeping myself small and safe. But now I want everything. I want a house full of children and a ranch that spans as far as we can see. I want to grow old with you, Warren Foster, and I want to build something that will last long after we're gone. Warren's eyes were bright in the starlight. Then that's what we'll do, together. Over the next years, they built exactly that. Katherine had 3 more children, 2 daughters named Mary and Elizabeth, and another son they called Thomas. The ranch grew to be one of the most successful in the territory, known for quality cattle and fair dealing. Warren never stopped earning Katherine's trust, even though she gave it freely now. He brought her coffee every morning, kissed her goodbye before riding out to work the cattle, and held her every night like she was precious. He was patient with their children, teaching them about ranching and honor and treating people with respect. Katherine bloomed under his steady love, becoming more confident, more open. She made friends among the neighboring ranchers' wives, no longer quite so suspicious of everyone's motives. But she never forgot the lessons of her youth, teaching her daughters to be strong and independent, to trust wisely but completely. When William was 10, he asked his mother why she always checked the fences herself instead of sending ranch hands to do it. Because it's my responsibility, Katherine said. Your father and I built this ranch together, and I'll never take for granted what we have. I learned a long time ago that you can't depend on anyone else to care about your property as much as you do. But you depend on Pa, William pointed out. Katherine smiled. I do, but that's different. Your father earned my trust over many years, and he continues to earn it every day. That's what marriage is, William. It's choosing someone and then choosing them again every single day. Did you always trust him? No, Katherine admitted. When I first met your father, I didn't trust him at all. I didn't trust any men, but he was patient with me. He showed me through his actions that he was worthy of my trust, and eventually I learned to let him in. What changed your mind? Katherine thought about that day in the storm, about Warren coming to find her, about the cow and the calf, about all the small kindnesses and the patient waiting. He showed me who he was, she said finally, not with words but with actions. Day after day, month after month, he proved that he was different from the men who had hurt me before. And eventually, I realized that staying closed off was hurting me more than risking my heart could. William nodded thoughtfully. I hope I find someone like that someday. I hope you do too, son. And I hope you'll be the kind of man worthy of that trust, like your father. The years rolled on, bringing the usual mix of joy and sorrow. They lost cattle to harsh winters and predators. Katherine's best milk cow died of old age, and she cried like she had lost a friend. Warren's horse, the one he had been riding the day they met, finally had to be put down, and Warren was quiet for days after. But the joys outweighed the sorrows. They watched their children grow, teaching them to ride and rope and run a ranch. William grew tall and serious, with his father's patience and his mother's determination. Mary was wild and fearless, always climbing trees and racing horses. Elizabeth was quiet and thoughtful, preferring books to cattle but loving the ranch nonetheless. Thomas was the charmer, able to sweet-talk extra cookies from his mother and convince his siblings to do his chores. When Katherine was 38 and Warren was 44, they sat on their porch one evening watching their grandchildren play. William had married a rancher's daughter from the next county, and they had 2 children of their own. Mary was being courted by a young lawyer from Cheyenne, much to her mother's amusement. "Can you imagine if someone had told me 15 years ago that I'd be sitting here watching my grandchildren play?" Katherine said. Warren reached for her hand, a gesture so familiar it was almost unconscious. "Would you have believed them?" "Not for a second. I was so sure I'd spend my life alone, that trusting anyone would only lead to heartbreak." "Do you regret it, trusting me?" Katherine looked at him, this man who had spent every day of their marriage earning what she wouldn't give, who had loved her through her fear and doubt, who had given her a life beyond her wildest dreams. "Not for a single moment," she said. "You gave me everything I was too afraid to want. A partner, a family, a home. You showed me that not all men are untrustworthy, that love can be steady and true and lasting." Warren lifted her hand and kissed it, the same gesture he had made that first night when she agreed to try. "You gave me just as much. You let me love you when you had every reason to keep me at arm's length. You built this life with me, this ranch, this family. I couldn't have done any of it without you." "We did it together," Katherine said. "Together," Warren agreed. As the sun set over their land, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Katherine thought about the young woman she had been, so hurt and angry and afraid. That woman had declared she would never trust a man, and she had meant it with her whole heart. But Warren Foster had changed everything. With patience and kindness and unwavering devotion, he had shown her that trust could be earned, that love could be real, that not all men were like the ones who had hurt her. He had spent every day earning what she wouldn't give, and in the process, he had won not just her trust but her whole heart. Their children grew and had children of their own. The ranch passed to William when Warren and Katherine grew too old to manage it themselves, but they stayed on the land they had built together, watching their legacy continue. Warren died first, peacefully in his sleep at the age of 72. Katherine held his hand as he took his last breath, whispering her love and gratitude for the life they had shared. She lived another 5 years, spending her time with her children and grandchildren, telling stories about the ranch's early days and the stubborn rancher who had refused to give up on the woman who wouldn't trust him. When Katherine died at 71, surrounded by family, her last words were about Warren. "He earned it," she whispered to William, who leaned close to hear her. "Every bit of trust I gave him, he earned. Tell your children that. Tell them that real love is patient and kind and willing to wait. Tell them that trust is earned day by day, action by action. And tell them that when you find someone willing to do that work, you hold on tight and never let go." William buried his mother next to his father on a hill overlooking the ranch they had built together. The headstones were simple, bearing their names and the years they had lived. But beneath Katherine's name, William had them carve one more line at Mary's suggestion. She trusted, and she was right to do so. The ranch continued for generations, passed down through William's line and beyond. The story of Warren and Katherine became family legend, told and retold to each new generation. The woman who didn't trust men and the rancher who spent every day earning what she wouldn't give, until finally she gave it freely, completely, for the rest of her life. Their love story became a testament to patience and faith, to the healing power of steady devotion, and to the transformative nature of trust earned and freely given. In a wild and often harsh land, they had built something beautiful and lasting, not just a ranch but a legacy of love that would endure long after they were gone. And on quiet evenings, when the wind whispered across the prairie and the stars came out over Wyoming Territory, it was said you could still feel their presence on that hill, two souls finally at rest, together for eternity as they had been in life, the trust between them unbroken even by death.